Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and Courtney, how are you?
I'm tired. And unfortunately, even though it's November, I'm hot. It is unnecessary for me to be hot in November. It is, do they know it's almost my birthday?
You moved out of the South to avoid this.
Exactly. That 100%. 100%. And here we are. So I'm mad and I'm tired and I'm hot.
Yep.
But otherwise I'm fine. You know, the bar is busy, so I'm making money, which means I'm also becoming more exhausted, which is, is what it
Yeah.
is. Saturdays are usually my slow days, and not this week. Not this week. It's busy the whole time. But I have a crew. I think I talked about them last week. A crew that comes in from Ireland. That are two are from Ireland, one's from Spain, and one's from Boston. But the regulars are two from Ireland and one from Spain, and they're lovely. I always end up chatting with them. I literally walked over to their table at one point. I was like, "Do you need anything? Do you want another Guinness? Do you want this?" They were like, "No, I think we're okay." I was like, "Great. I'm just gonna stand here for a second then because I don't really want to talk to anyone else." And they were like, "Yeah, that's fine. You can hide out here." I was like, "Excellent."
Fantastic.
So I hit a lot talking to them, but it was fine otherwise. LSU won, which was, I had a lot of feelings during that game. I'm pretty sure I yelled at the TV in front of people at one point, and I just kept saying Nick Saban would never. Because I know you probably didn't watch the game because you
I
probably
did
don't
not.
care. But the very end of the game, they had 20 seconds left, and it was a tied game. Instead of trying to just score a field goal or something because they had just gotten the ball back, they just waited out the 20 seconds and went to overtime.
No. No.
Can you imagine? I just yelled for the next 10 minutes.
Who did LSU play?
Bama, this was our big game.
Oh.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
See, I don't pay attention enough to college football to really care, except for that, I just feel like I should like Alabama because everybody likes Alabama.
No, false. You are my
The
friend.
the
Therefore,
only thing I do know is that I viciously hate Clemson.
totally fine. I have no
Okay.
strong feelings. I like their band.
A guy I knew who went to high school, he's like my sister's age. He didn't go to high school with my sister, obviously, because she went to an all-girls school. But he is a horrible, 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 shitty human being. He went to Clemson for a while, and that was the only time I actually paid attention to college football was to make sure that he was not playing because he got injured and then got kicked off the team because he sucked.
So he
Um,
was not in the band then.
no, he was not in the band.
That's fine then. It's fine. No problem. How are you doing?
Um, I Today is a bad day, but we're gonna pretend today didn't exist and talk about my
Excellent.
weekend because my weekend was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really only gonna talk about Saturday because as we told you guys in whatever episode it was that we recorded the other day, we recorded on Saturday and it is now Monday. So that means
Mm-hmm.
I only have 2 days of my life to talk about. So I'm only talking about one.
Yes, good choice. Good choice.
Saturday, I finished recording and I called Dan to figure out what we were doing because we were supposed to be going to a party for his family. And in my mind, when you have a party, it's in the evening.
Right.
And I know that that's just my assumption and not everyone's life, but I assume that you're having a party and it's going to have a bonfire, so it's an evening party. That's just how
Anything
my
fire is at night.
right. It started at 3 and it was 3:20 when he realized it.
That is not the correct time then.
No, so we had to rush and get ready. But then we went and it was so nice. It was both of his sisters and his mom and his cousin's husband and his uncle. And it was just so much fun. And we were chatting and I am apparently comfortable enough that I made multiple jokes about Mary and Dan in front of his family and they just went with it with me. And I was like, oh,
That was
good.
nice of
And
them.
I literally even said something about how I have the absolute worst taste in men. And his sister goes, I'm telling Dano you said that. And I go, oh, please do. He knows. I have garbage taste in men, which is why I would never, ever have dated him. She was like, dating app? I was like 100% left. 0% of what's on paper about your brother would I have dated. I go, but he's absolutely perfect for me. And it's because I don't have good taste in men and I would never pick someone who was good for me.
Right, right.
They found that amusing and appreciated it.
Well,
But
that is very true. I think truer than they know, but that's okay.
yeah, my favorite part of the night though was when we were talking about different like fall alcoholic beverages,
Mm.
and I was explaining. So his cousin Grace has a very severe gluten like issue. She has celiac, and it's like severe. Um, and so she can't have a lot of things that have cinnamon in them because, fun fact, American cinnamon, if you buy it from Italy imported, it does not have ground flour in it. But if it is from America, because the food and drug standards are different,
Mhm.
some of what's in cinnamon powder actually is ground flour.
Interesting.
So she can't have cinnamon. So we were talking about it, and I go, "What if it's like whole stick cinnamon and there's no powder at all?" And she goes, "Oh, well, then that would have to be fine because like there's nothing added to it." And I go, "Okay, because there's this vodka. It's called Infuse, and it's made with, and in the bottle it comes with dried apples and whole cinnamon sticks already mixed in the bottle." And his mom was like, oh my gosh, can you send me that? I go, sure. Wait, I don't have your number. And she goes, okay, hold on, let me give it to you. And then she goes, oh, that's great because then I'll have your number and then I can text you when Dan says he's coming to dinner and then doesn't tell me what time he's coming because, and I go, oh yeah, no, for sure. So then I'm texting his mom, literally texting his mom pictures of bottles of vodka. And he goes, if you would have asked me what the first text you ever sent to my mother would be, in 0 universes would I have chosen that.
That is a very fair statement.
And I was like, yeah, that's how you know. That's how you know I'm the one you're going to marry and not just like some random person because I'm literally texting your mom pictures of vodka.
I love it. Oh, it makes me so happy.
And then also we got into a whole debate on the hedgehog issue in because so in America, hedgehogs are pets, right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Um, in England, they are wild animals. They are not domesticated,
Okay.
which I did know. But Emily's husband, Tom, who's from the UK, was like aggressively upset about the idea of people having hedgehogs as pets because they're not domesticated in Europe. And I was like, but like they already are domesticated here, so it's not the same. But then, so the party was for Bonfire Day, which is Guy Fawkes Day.
Mhm.
And apparently in England, they have a huge issue with people having bonfires in their backyards on Bonfire Day because then the little baby hedgehogs run into the bonfires.
So sad.
Yeah.
Oh no, I hate that.
So that's why he won't let Emily get a pet hedgehog.
Well, I mean, look, if you're gonna come up with a reason, that's as good of one as any.
I do understand. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
That makes me very upset. I don't like it.
either. But yeah, so that was my Saturday. It was nice. And it's weird how easy it was to hang out with his family. Like at one point, I don't even know where he was. I was just in the backyard with his sisters and his cousin at the bonfire eating s'mores and talking about like bachelorette parties. And I was like,
That sounds
this is,
perfect.
I was like, this is it. This is my family. Like that's,
I love that.
yeah.
Aw. You know
Now
what?
that I've been so sappy.
I've been very sappy, but it's fine, I guess.
No.
Um, you know what else I love?
Oh,
I didn't know who was gonna like.
no, you started it and then I interrupted you and then I was going to let you have it, but then I didn't make that clear.
Well, there we go. Things I love, spirituality. And today, I have a nice quote for you. Sometimes you get what you want, other times you get a lesson in patience, timing, alignment, empathy, compassion, faith, perseverance, resilience, humility, trust, meaning, awareness, resistance, purpose, clarity, grief, beauty, and life. Either way, you win. Brianna Weist. I assume that's how you
Yeah.
say it. It's Wiest.
Yeah.
Or Vest.
Vist. I don't know, actually. I guess it depends on the language of origin.
I guess very German.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways,
I love that.
yeah,
Um,
I loved it too.
I will say it's a little wordy.
It's a little wordy. I didn't
I
realize
was like,
how wordy it was until I was talking, and I was like, "This is never ending."
I was like, that's a lot of qualities, and I'm so for all of them. I don't really want to remove any of them, but like,
Dial it back a bit. Yeah, I regretted it halfway through reading it, but I was committed at that point already. So here we are.
you know what I'm committed to?
What is that?
Stargate.
Me too. For the next 8.5 years.
Oh, we did the math. That's that's a fact. Um, so we watched Stargate SG-1 season 2, episode 14. It was called Touchstone, and it was rated 7.6 stars.
Tell you, I read the title before I watched it, and I was like, "Great." No, just now am I realizing I read the title wrong. I know they talked about Touchstone throughout the entire thing, but I wrote Tombstone, and those are great.
Yeah, there is nothing about tombstones in this
Not a
episode.
thing. Not a thing.
Yeah, no. Touchstone
Mhm.
was rated 7.6 stars, which I think I think it's a little under what it probably should
Um,
be. So I don't know.
I would have said, okay, I think it depends on how we look at it because as a standalone, because that's kind of where they threw us after the last couple weeks being kind of in order, um, a little high. But because of everything it brings in, then maybe it should have been rated a little higher. But
See, because I don't see it as a standalone. Like it's obviously a slight deviation from where we were with the um Gould stuff that was happening
right.
with the Tok'ra and everything. Um, but I mean, to be fair, just because the Tok'ra was a two-parter, what happened right before that? Not
But then we had
anything.
spirits after it,
Oh
and
yeah,
it
we did it.
it felt like it still flowed because then we went to Sam still, and it was still kind
Yeah,
of the
but
story. I don't know. This one just it felt a little out of place, especially like because they only were gonna have 2 seasons this time. I was like, we started talking about this one entire season ago.
see, this is the right time to be doing that though, because they had two seasons planned, and now they're at the point where they're beginning the second half of season 2. They have to make sure that their story is big enough that they will pull whatever they need to pull ratings wise for season 3.
I guess that's true. I just felt like they were really far apart.
No, but I'm telling you, I know why it felt different, and it wasn't the story.
Okay.
The graphics on this episode. I'll be fair. I was watching it without my contacts in. So, like that, but that should have made it blurrier, and it was like viciously clearer. I don't know if there's a different like cinematographer. The first thing I noticed of this episode was that I was like, this must be a different director because it's shot so fucking weird, and it's not
It
a new
was
director.
shot very differently. That's
It's
interesting.
shot it's shot so differently. The coloration is different. The
Mhm.
visual aspects were so different. It's not a new director. So I don't really know what to do with that. Um, it is a new writer, so that
Yeah,
might,
but
but that doesn't, I mean, that might have to do with how some of the disconnect in
yeah,
story, but it doesn't make my issues with it make
no.
sense. Um,
Because he was
but
still
I,
writing on a story that's already happened, and it just wasn't. Maybe that is my disconnect, is because it was written by a different person, so it was written a little
mm,
differently, even though it was the same story, but it
yeah,
affected the visuals.
no, but I think for the first time I felt like it actually like continued on, like it did not directly follow Spirits.
Right.
Fair. But it did bring in multiple things from other episodes this season and things from episodes in the first season and leave you with enough of a cliffhanger that you actually think you like that you actually care about what happens next week. It didn't feel like a one-off story. And I think
No,
that's
I
the
think that's true.
I think this is the first time that it wasn't in the middle of a two-parter that it left you with an ending like that, which is why it feels different.
That is true. It makes me kind of wish the first time we see the second Stargate that it was closer to now because that was kind of a hang like left
That's
hang
true.
up.
That's no, that's
And
very
this would have been
true.
a great episode to follow it.
It would have, but you needed that time of them thinking that the Stargate wasn't used. So it couldn't have been too, it needed to have, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe a little closer, but
Well, like
not
maybe this season at least.
maybe, yeah.
Because
I don't know.
we're on episode 14. So like
Yeah. I will say that this is the first episode that feels like what I know Stargate to be.
okay, I could see that.
So that's why I think I have such a different, I think it should be higher, but it's because I know more to come and the whole like bigger story arc, the things that are happening, the mysteries, the things that might not come back right away, but are definitely super important and are going to get intertwined and weaved into things is much more common in later Stargate and in the Stargate spin-offs. And so I think that that's why I'm like, why is it only rated 7.6? But I guess if looking at it without that lens and just what's before it, I can understand how the disconnect would make it feel like not
Yeah.
quite right.
I could definitely see what you're saying because this is the first episode that I feel like they've intertwined more than one storyline we've already learned about. But
Hmm.
because they haven't done that yet, and because
Right.
I'm so used to them messing it up after, that I'm just like, I don't know where we're going with this. Like,
Right.
are we gonna have this storyline and then it's gonna be season 4 before we like
I
mention
mean,
it again? Like,
also maybe yes, because they do a lot of that. But how many callbacks were there in this episode? There was at least four different
at least.
previous stories that were necessary to understand this
Mhm.
one, and that's the first time we've had that.
Right. Yes. Yes, definitely.
Um, so I don't know. I liked it because of that, but
I liked
also
it. I liked the episode. I just rating wise from a standoff point, I'm not sure.
yeah.
And the I see now in my notes there's a point I just put terrible lighting. So like obviously I also had a problem with the graphics. So maybe that was part of what it was too.
It's just weird. It was not even it was just weird because I was thinking today while I was driving home that like 1997 Stargate and 2007 Stargate must be vastly different visually, but like I just have not sat down and watched all 10 seasons in a row to like picture it. Not yet. But then this episode I was like, "Oh no, they just changed it already." So, I don't know. It came out on October 30th, 1998. So like, almost happy almost Halloween. Also, not 2007, so I don't know how the graphics changed that much.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's Riley's birthday, who sometimes, I don't know if she listens, but she follows us on Instagram and interacts with us.
ugh.
So, happy birthday.
um, Also happy birthday to Courtney because this episode comes out the day after her birthday. No, it
Yes, it
doesn't.
does. Yes, it
Wait,
does.
yes, it
No, it
no.
doesn't. What
No, it
day?
doesn't. This
No,
episode this episode doesn't come out until the 18th or the 20th of November.
I'll be back in the world of that I
I'll be,
currently live in.
this episode comes out on the day we're together in New
Ah,
York.
it does. Oh, that's so exciting. Oh my gosh, I'm knocking everything over.
That's
It's
so
fine. I
exciting.
got too excited.
Yeah, sorry. We're actually going to see each other in person for one day, and it is today, but not today. Um, the number one song was Back to the First Night by Monica. We lost our 1 week of 1 week. The number one movie is one of my favorite like it's not really underrated. I just feel like no one I know has actually watched it, and it's
Okay.
one of my favorites. The number one movie was Pleasantville.
Is that the one with Nicole Kidman?
No, it's with Tobey Maguire. No, I lied. Not
Oh, and
yeah, it is.
Kirsten Dunst.
And Kirsten Dunst
I
with
haven't seen that one, but I always get it confused with the Stepford Wives now that I've said
yes, no, but Pleasant. I mean, I get why you would get it confused, but I freaking love that movie. I've only seen it like once or twice, but I was just like so enthralled. It's
Sometimes movies like that do that.
You're just like, oh my God, like what am I watching? And then I saw that it was the number one movie, and I go, oh my God, it came out in 1998.
And other people watched it. It's
Yeah.
because it was right before they did Spider-Man. What was the
Hmm.
first one they did? '02.
I think so.
So like I don't know. I don't know why it would have been popular then, but they were both kind of in their heyday, I guess, at the time because it was
Yeah.
that's why they got selected to do Spider-Man is because they were both big names at the time.
Yeah. And the number one book was still Bag of Bones by Stephen King.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
If events in that day, one is that A Truth and Reconciliation was published in South Africa, something like the end of the ceasing of apartheid, some big thing.
Great.
Um, and this one upsets me because last week in our Stargate podcast, we talked about the fact that the only world event was a peace treaty being signed between Israel and Palestine. Today, the world event was a car bomb on the Gaza Strip. So the peace treaty lasted 7 days.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, this episode was directed by Brad Turner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what, yeah, Brad Turner. So he's one of like our big three that directs. Like it's Martin Wood, Brad Turner, and who's the other one who's always directing?
Glassner?
What's
Or is
that?
he just a writer? Jonathan Glassner? Is he just a
No,
writer or does he direct?
Glassner's usually writing. My
Mark
notes.
Wood, Turner. Did you say both those and Brad Wright? Did you say all three of those?
Brad Wright is the other one. No, Brad Wright is okay. So Brad Wright and Jonathan Glassner are the
Are the writers,
creators. The
creators?
creators, and they usually write it. Um, David Wary Smith is one of the big ones that we have a bunch of times. Um,
I just always
but
remember Brad Turner
yeah,
and
no,
Wood.
but Brad Turner and Martin Wood are
Martin
the
Wood.
two big ones. So Brad Turner's still directing it. And it was written by Sam Egan. Sam Egan, this is his only episode for the show at all. He's known for writing on The Outer Limits, Quincy M.E., and Sanctuary. He was also nominated for an Emmy for writing on Continuum. So sci-fi's in his wheelhouse.
It is. It is.
Um, um,
I have a question.
yeah,
Is he related to Susan Egan?
I don't think so, but that was my first thought when I saw his name also. I did not see any connection between them on his page. He does have a child named Jen. Nope, not Jen. I don't remember. I did look to see if Susan Egan was anywhere on his page, and she was not.
I don't think so.
But yeah, that was not a stupid question because it was my first question when I saw the spelling of his name, and I was like,
Who else
what?
do I know named that? One other person in the entire world.
Well, I know more than one because my math teacher, one of my math teachers in high school was last name was Egan, and she was also not related to Susan Egan.
Is he related to her?
No, which is why I questioned whether his daughter was named Jen or
There's
not,
three of
because
them?
I questioned whether his daughter was named Jen or not because that's her name, my math
Mm.
teacher. So I don't know, but I could have sworn it said he had a child named Jen who was not
A
my
lot more
math
Egans
teacher.
than I ever thought I would have heard about in my life.
Yeah. Um, the guest star for this episode, we're talking about Matthew Walker. He played Roham, so not a big part, but to be fair, nobody who we haven't talked about before really had a big part. Um, but Matthew Walker is known for Alone in the Dark and The Wicker Man. But what I know him from, and the only thing on his page that looked familiar at all, is that he played Mr. March in the 1994 Little Women with Winona Ryder, which is the one I show my students because as much as I love Florence Pugh and Saoirse Ronan and all of that, they changed the ending of the
Yeah.
book so drastically.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so I recognized him, but it's only because I watched that version of Little Women very recently.
Nice. Nice. Um,
Hmm.
before we get into the episode, I meant to
Yeah,
mention one more thing,
yeah.
Stargate related. So we all know I've been watching X-Files.
Hmm.
That's my sci-fi show of this month. And I was watching an episode today, and guess who my guest star was? John S. Davis.
I
I lost
love
my
John
mind, and
S.
this was
Davis.
94, 93. So it was before Stargate.
Very
And
nice.
it was so exciting.
Um, yeah,
Regular old
uh,
Hammond out
I
in the
love
wild.
that man. Love that man.
Mhm.
So we start with the SG team filling Hammond in on their discoveries from their last mission. And this is where I immediately knew something was weird about the lighting in the show.
Yes.
I was
I
like,
was really thrown off by this opening.
yeah,
I didn't know what was happening.
it felt so strange. Um, but they found a planet that can proactively change the climate to match their needs. And they're like freaking out. They're like, this is probably the most important piece of technology we've found, like anywhere on any planet we've gone to, because like it's actual technology and it's not um for war.
Right, which is
um
nice for a change.
yeah, but they also figured out that based on the people that they met there, it was probably another alien race who had made it. And their technology is even more superior to the than the Goa'uld technology, and they're like, this is everything. And they're like,
Scary.
what's that?
It says scary.
Yeah, and but they're like, we would like to request to go back and like measure it and take some data and do some readings to figure out how it works. And General Hammond's like, why can't you just like bring it back? And they're like, honestly, don't think that's a good idea because I think it regulates the climate of the planet, and if we took it away, I don't know what would happen to the planet. But like, we would like to at least get enough data that we could try to replicate it without it being there. And he was like, fine by me, go ahead. Authorizes the mission. My note says they arrive on the planet and holy visuals because the graphics that they used for the storm on the planet was like not good,
Yeah,
but like massively impressive compared to the other things that they have used on this show.
right.
And I was
They
like,
were
what?
just, it's like they tried too hard.
I was like, what is happening here?
Mhm.
It felt very out of place.
Yes. It was also a very scary land. Like they've gone into gunfire and this felt scarier.
Right. But the reason this crazy storm is there because the touchstone is missing, and as they predicted, the whole climate of the whole planet is absolutely jacked up now. Um, and the people on the planet are like, why did you take it? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, no, you took it. And they're like, why would we take it and then come back? Like that doesn't even make sense. And
Right.
they're like, well, people dressed like you came and took it and snuck back through the Stargate, and no one on this planet knows how to use the portal. So,
I was yelling at my TV. And I was watching this at home, so I was actually yelling. I was like, it's clearly another SG team. Just speak to each other. Like, why
yeah,
has neither of you come to this conclusion yet?
right. Um, they came a little bit to the conclusion and they said, listen, the only way we're going to find it is if we go back to Earth and try to trace it that way. Like we can't do anything from here. And you're like, you're just gonna have to trust us that we will leave it and come back. And Roham is not thrilled about it, but his daughter, whose name I did not catch once, Princess Issa, I think maybe is what Daniel said. She's like, yes, you will come back. I know you because of course generic pretty 90s girls always trust Daniel Jackson. That's
Absolutely.
just science.
Absolutely, they do.
Um, so the future of their entire race depends on them returning this touchstone, and then we get the credits.
Mhm.
Because of course, like why wouldn't the credits come right after we find out that the future of an entire race of aliens is in the balance?
Dun dun dun.
And I apologize. I cannot stop yawning tonight. I don't know what is happening.
Well, I'm tired and it's gonna make me keep yawning, so I would like to secondly apologize for my
Um,
reaction.
yeah. Um, so they come back to the base and they tell Hammond everything that they found out about the touchstone. And Hammond is like, I have no idea how that would happen. And Jack is not like accusing him, but he's kind of accusing him because he's like,
He is.
um, if people dressed like SGC went there and took it and came back through the Stargate, how exactly are they not SGC? And Hammond is genuinely like, nothing goes on with that Stargate that I don't know about. Like,
So
man,
I knew that nothing went on without him authorizing it. So my first thought was Hammond's getting shady. That he wanted this, so he was like so lax about letting them go that he had sent someone else to get it already, and that's why he was so lax about it. Turns out I was wrong, thankfully. But
well, yeah, but I
that
mean,
was Jack.
Hammond even addresses that point. He's like, why would I authorize you going back if I knew I already sent somebody to take it? Like, that doesn't even, like, even if my character was called into question, why is my logic being called into question?
Right.
And I appreciated that he didn't care that they questioned him as a person. He cared that they questioned him on strategy. Because like that would be my fact too. I'd be like, you don't have to trust me. You can think I'm lying to your face, but I'm smarter than that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so then Jack's like, well, listen, I'm not saying that you did something, but like, could a team have done it without you knowing? Like, would somebody have gone behind your back? And he's like, no,
Why not?
absolutely not. And he's like, and Jack's like, can we check? And Hammond starts to kind of throw a fit, but then Hammond's like, you know what? No, like, I trust my people. I trust my judgment. I trust that nobody's lying to me and something happened. So I'm going to trust the team that I trust the most to find out what it is. And says, like, yes, let Sam check the records just in case.
I absolutely thought Hammond was going to let his ego stand in the way, and that was going to be like the hardship this episode. I'm telling you, I was so accidentally anti Hammond at the beginning of this episode. I was so bummed about it, and he just kept pleasantly surprising me. I was like, you know
Well, but
what? That's a good
here's
leader.
Here's the thing, and this is why I don't think the episode's misplaced. Because you know why you were so easily accidentally anti-Hammond?
I
Because of
forgot
how he
about
fucked up in Hero and Spirits. In Spirits, he was going to go behind people's backs and do the
it.
shady thing. And they placed this episode right after that so that you had that seed of doubt about what Hammond's intentions were. It wasn't poor connection. It makes
And
sense.
it was far enough away that my first thought was not the second Stargate,
No, it's
nor
far
my
enough away
second or
that,
third thought, to be
right,
fair.
it's far enough away that you're not
Okay.
thinking that there's another option. And we just had an episode where Hammond did make the wrong choice. And so for the first time in the show, you're like, is he gonna do the right thing?
Yes. Yes, correct.
But so he lets them look at it and they are going through the Stargate and they're checking everything. And also Teal'c and Daniel are watching the Weather Channel.
Fun.
Um,
Just kidding. I know it's to keep to monitor the weather.
Which, it's because they're worried about a device that changes the
Right.
weather, but like also they're just like casually watching the Weather Channel, which I just found to be so funny. Um, and the Weather Channel is showing reports of like insane weather patterns all over the country. And they're like, so yeah, the touchstone's definitely on Earth. And Jack just goes, how do you know? Jack, there's flooding in Albuquerque, New Mexico. What do you mean, how do you know?
Jack, do you not know how weather works?
There's like it's October and there's rain in California. That's not true.
No.
So Jack clearly does not watch the Weather Channel ever. Um but
Even though he's in the Air Force and they constantly have to weather
know what the weather is going to be.
Totally
He's
fine
been
though.
he's
Totally
been going
fine.
to space for so long he doesn't care about Earth
That's true.
weather.
He's like nothing makes sense anymore.
Right. Um but while they're looking that up, Sam is looking up everything in the gate database, and definitely no one used the Stargate at SGC to travel back to Oh God, I didn't start writing the name of the planet until way
Start
too
with an
late.
M, but I forgot to write it down.
Um,
Mara.
Madrona. I started writing it way too late into my notes because I just wrote nonsense for this whole thing. Um, but to go to Madrona. So they knew it wasn't that. But the last time SG2 returned from their mission, the energy levels in the gate readout were not normal.
Gasp. That
Yes.
was my first gasp of this episode.
And so, um, Sam said she thought it matched the energy pattern from the wormhole when they ended up in Antarctica.
Ah!
But then, of course, whoever did it deliberately hid the
And
like,
SG2s.
yeah. Well, they also deliberately hid the data.
Yeah.
So she had to search through like multiple layers of backup to find it. And when she finally did, she found that it not only was timed perfectly to be hidden with SG2's return, it did exactly match the split in the wormhole. So the person who is doing this knows how to use the gate and knows the schedule of teams going in and out of the gate.
Right?
Sketchy.
Wonder who that could be.
No one is authorized to use that gate. As far as SGC and General Hammond knew, the gate was deactivated and buried. So General Hammond is trying to call the president to figure out what on earth is going on. And surprisingly, shockingly, the president has a very busy schedule and cannot answer the phone. Now, I have two minds about this. One, obviously, yes, it has been made clear that this is deliberate and that the president is not available because on purpose because someone is messing with the schedule. But also, I get it. General Hammond is super important. He's got the fancy red phone. But like sometimes the president's just like mad busy.
But did you see what color the phone was? I was like, yeah, do you see what color that phone is?
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, General Hammond, but it's October 30th, 1998, and on October 27th, 1998, the official impeachment trial started. So the president is too busy being impeached for having
his honor.
having his manhood fondled in the Oval Office by an intern. So he can't come to the phone right now.
Look, he's still got a job to do until he's officially impeached and is out of the office.
And spoiler alert, he didn't get impeached.
Yeah.
So
call Hillary up. She's got to be around. She's not there. She doesn't care. She's like, I don't want any part of this. So she can answer the phone.
Right. For those who don't know, the president in Stargate is probably not actually Bill Clinton because it's a fictional world.
Right.
But also, I like to pretend that General Hammond is talking to Bill Clinton.
Has a direct to Bill Clinton in 1998.
Yes. Which is why things keep getting messed up because Bill Clinton was clearly preoccupied in 1998.
Such a mess in 98.
It was not the year for General Hammond to be trying to start a space exploration program.
Ugh. No. You know what it was not the year for? The other part of the government to step in when it wasn't their place. That was not at SGC. That's all.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have made issues. We wouldn't have been here.
But then we find out, speaking of the government stepping in, we find out that in the beginning of the development of the Stargate program, there were people who wanted to make it so that no matter what was discovered in any form of technology on any planet that they went to, it was all brought back to the United States without any regard for any other life that may be on any of these planets. And Hammond doesn't know who.
Which is rude.
Hammond doesn't know who, but he does know that they weren't military. So again, people in the government sticking their nose in places where they shouldn't be. Because once again,
Mhm.
Stargate, pro-military, anti-government.
Right, right.
Um, but I wrote, he doesn't know who, but he knows they're not going to mess with his program.
Correct. Correct. Back off.
Um, So Sam does some calculations in science because that's what Sam does, and she finds out that the frequency and weather patterns show that the touchstone is somewhere in the desert in Nevada. I don't know if you immediately jumped to the
I
conclusion that
didn't.
I did.
I did not. But then I was like, everything makes sense.
Yeah, because they go, oh, Nevada is not where the second gate is. And they're like, yeah, it is. It's where Nellis Air Force Base is. Nellis Air Force Base is also fondly known as Area 51. And guess who just got casually reassigned to Area 51 and Nellis Air Force Base like
I
last week? That's right, Colonel piece of shit Harry Maybourne.
forgot his first name. But we hate him. Also, I was like listening to that. It was like in the deserts of Nevada. And I was like, I don't know anything about Nevada. All right. I just kept going.
Yeah.
That's not important. And then they're like,
Uh,
oh, I did know that part.
yeah. No, when they were like, that's in the desert in Nevada, I go, Area 51. But only because in the last Maybourne episode, he was trying to take Teal'c to Area 51. So my brain was like, Area 51. But also partially because Tom McBeath was in the credits. And I know that that's who plays Maybourne because I've already researched him for the podcast. So when his name was in the credits, I know Maybourne's going to be in the episode.
Fair.
So I did have a few extra dots to string my conspiracy theory string to.
Yes. I just was Walden. I don't know.
um, then we also find out, based on the Melp pictures from Madrona, that they're for sure going to be awash in like 48 hours. Because it has now become a blizzard with 80-mile-per-hour winds.
It is insane.
I don't know if you've ever been in a blizzard before. Um,
I don't think I've been in a real one, but one time I was in Queens and it was really windy and I couldn't see with all the snow blowing into my face and I couldn't walk. And it took me like 20 minutes to walk like 3 blocks to the train. So that's probably
yeah,
the closest I've ever been, but I don't think
that's
it was a true blizzard.
that's fair. I don't know when the last actual blizzard in Buffalo was.
I also don't know
Um,
like what is considered a blizzard and what's not.
right. That's
But, like, it was
also
cold, there was a lot of snow and the wind was blowing really hard and it hurt me. Is that a blizzard? Is that an accurate
um,
way to describe a blizzard?
yeah, pretty close.
Then yes, 3 years ago, I was in a blizzard in Queens.
So the last blizzard that I was in um, was Snowvember, as we fondly call it.
Would you like to know what month it is now that's not full of snow?
Correct. Snowvember was the November of 2014, where the week of Thanksgiving, we had 8 feet of snow in 2 days.
Oh my goodness, that's so early.
The city was largely unaffected, but like the south towns were like really, really bad. And there was a lake effect band that was literally, it was like 8 feet of snow. My friend worked at a BJ's, which is like
Like
a
a Costco.
Costco.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was it had no roof.
Oh, I don't know
Um,
where I was expecting to go, but that wasn't it.
yeah, and then so like in the worst storms ever recorded in Buffalo, the top 5 worst ones. I was present and aware of 3 of them.
Yeah, I am. I don't think it's been that bad. I mean, I moved here during the snow bomb of 2018.
Yeah, so we
With
had
friends, but
Snowvember, which I distinctly remember, the October surprise storm in
ooh,
2000. in 2006, I was a freshman in high school, and it was literally like a once in a lifetime storm. It was overnight in the middle of beginning of October, like a massive ice storm. It shut Buffalo out of power for like 4 or 5 days. I didn't go to school for a week. Like it was,
So I want to say it might have been that same year, but in
mhm,
March, that happened in Louisiana.
yeah.
Like we went to school that morning, and by like noon, it had started snowing so bad that it was sticking everywhere, and it was like
Hmm.
building inches. And they're like, everyone has to go home, I think.
Yeah.
But we don't know how to get you there. So
Well, it was because it was still October and all the leaves, the trees still had leaves on them. When the snow hit, the leaves were so heavy that they fell, and 60,000 trees were damaged. And
oh my God.
that's why the power lines were out for so long because they had to unbury them.
Oh my God. That was just this year. That was just the first time we'd ever had snow in Louisiana since I was alive. So
And then
and I,
in 2000, I don't really remember this one because I was 8, but in November of 2000, there was 25 inches of snow in 24 hours.
Jesus
Um,
Christ.
yeah, so um, I've never seen 80 mile per hour winds, but I've seen a blizzard, and the combination, I don't think I'd want to be a part of that.
I don't think I would survive that.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
but I do love snow. And it is 75 degrees today in New York City, which is a shame. So,
Yeah. Um,
wishing for that blizzard.
so then because they're so worried about the people of Madrona, they're like, we have to go to Nellis and figure out what's going on with this gate. And Hammond's like, I'll make a call. And they're like, why? We have clearance. And he goes, you know what? Fuck it. You're right. You do have clearance, and we have no idea who to trust. So you guys are just gonna go.
Totally fair.
So they do. And we find out that like basically Area 51 is literally just surviving as like a research facility for all of the shit that SJC brings back from these planets. There's like a Goa'uld ship there.
They're
The
studying
star
the gold sliders that came at them.
Yeah. Yeah, the Goa'uld gliders, they
Sliders.
what else did they say they had? Oh, they've got a cure for Alzheimer's that one of the that SG-13 found on a planet or something like that. Like it was crazy.
Well, where is it now? 24 years later. Area
Nowhere.
51
Yeah. With the aliens.
with the
Although
aliens.
although the major who's showing them around specifically says that there is no alien life at Area 51.
I like how
Um,
he's like, that's not a thing we have. And it's like, we saw the Greys. Like,
right.
we went to Asgard.
Yeah. But he's like, there is no alien life, and Jack goes, present company excluded.
Yeah.
And Teal'c was just like, thank you.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that was
Yeah.
so funny.
Um, and then Maybourne comes there, and the first thing out of his fucking mouth is a fucking prick comment to Teal'c. I was like, oh, Teal'c, I see you're feeling better. And Teal'c just, he says, in my culture, it would be well within my rights to dismember you.
That was my favorite. I wrote it down. Also, this was the scene, I think it was when they first got to Area 51, where it's like a silhouette of like Jack and Tilk and maybe Daniel
Yeah.
Jackson. It was only like two or three of them. And it had like the light behind him, and you couldn't see anything. I was like, this is the worst shot I've ever
Well,
seen of
I
anything.
will tell you, it was not Daniel Jackson. It was Sam. And I will tell you the reason I know that.
Mhm.
Because of the trivia for this episode that I wasn't going to share. But the trivia for this episode is that our dear friend Share, who is not, I can't remember the actress's name, but the actress who plays Share, we talked.
About her.
Well, you did. You just talked about her on Instagram, but we talked about how she was, in fact, actually pregnant when she filmed the episode where Share was pregnant. The same day that they filmed this, the majority of this episode is the day that Michael Shanks and
Bashira Bandera.
Vashtir Badet's child was born. So
Well,
Daniel Jackson, that's why he has so little of a speaking role and he's so minor in this role, is because a bulk of the shooting happened while he was having a child.
that's fair. That's a good reason.
So, yes. So anytime there's a silhouette and not all four of them are there, he's the one who's missing. That's why there's so much close up in this episode also to
Mm,
hide the fact that he's with them, but like wasn't actually with them.
that makes sense. Maybe that's why it was so weird visually.
It might be because
That
like
was just
there's
a
a
bad choice of
there
what to do
because
it.
there's a lot of close-ups in this episode,
Yeah,
which was weird, but again, they're hiding the fact that Daniel's there but not actually on set.
right. That makes sense.
Instead of just writing him out, I think it was like too late to do that, so they were just like, we're just gonna film it at an angle.
Yeah.
Um, so they start interrogating Maybourne. And Maybourne swears that the secondary gate is dormant. He has no idea what they're talking about. It's locked up in the thing. And they're like, well, then you'll like show it to us. And he was like, I don't need you to see it. And he was like, so you'll show it to us.
Right.
So they do. And it's still in a shipping container and everything is great. And Maybourne's like, see? And then Sam goes, yeah, here's the thing. This
Um,
is made of plastic.
how do you not notice that? I don't know what the
Mm,
what's it called the Stargate's made of. I'm gonna guess it's heavier than plastic.
yeah, it's made of what's that metal that
As
Nazkodak, yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna guess it's heavier than plastic, and there's no reason why they should not have known that it was plastic.
Here's the thing. I for sure knew.
I know. I hate them.
Um um Harry promises that this gate this is the gate that was sent there. They don't have anything else there. He doesn't know how it's plastic. He doesn't know what happened.
Liar.
Um So Jack does not believe him
You
and
will.
keeps prodding and keeps asking questions. And Maybourne finally admits that it was in fact moved by someone and it's classified who moved it. And Jack's like, we have the highest like clearance. And he goes, for the military, which is confirming that someone civilian is involved in this.
And my question is, how did the civilian get this clearance? Because it didn't start out as a civilian like project.
My
They give it to
money,
them.
my money's on Senator Kinsey, piece of shit.
Mm, you know? Mm.
I hate Senator Kinsey. I might hate Senator Kinsey more than I hate Colonel Maybourne.
That's
Might. That's
Casey's like at
if
least dumb enough
if
that he doesn't really get away with anything on his own. But
but
Mayborn like gets away with stuff.
if Kinsey's the one doing this, then he goes
But I feel like
higher.
Mayborn set him up for it. Like I don't feel like he had the like brains to come up with it by himself.
Maybe. I don't know. Um, so Hammond is making all the phone calls with all the people, and no one will tell him what's going on. But the touchstone isn't being used anymore, although weather seems to be going back to normal. Um, so Sam thinks that they can track the gate itself. And she has a plan for tracking the gate. And she says that they're going to go back to Madrona and deliberately overwhelm the gate to create a wormhole and send themselves to the second gate to find out where it is. And
I want to note how every time something like this happens, they're like, one person has to go because it's really dangerous. And then they all four justify why they all need to be there. It's
yeah,
like, and now we're all going. It's like,
yeah.
okay.
But Hammond's like, none of you are doing that because you almost died the last time because the energy in the wormhole fucked you up. So like, no. And they're like, well, what if we send the map so that we can like get a GPS and a picture, but nobody has to go through it? And they're like, okay, but somebody's gonna have to be in Madrona to make it work. And Jack's like, I know, I know. And he just like acts like it's obvious that he's the one who has to go when he's actually like the person with the least reason to go, except for that it's his team.
Right, right.
And then Daniel is like, well, I have to go to set everything up because Sam can't go because Sam has to be at SGC to get the readings because she's the only one who knows how to do the tracking of the mouth thing. And I don't know, Teal just stays because two and two, I guess. I
Right.
don't
Well,
know.
that's how it goes, you know.
Yeah. Um, so Daniel and Jack go to Madrona, and the people there are like pissed. They're dying. They're made like they look like the people in Frozen after Elsa sets the village on ice, and everybody's just like melting or not melting, freezing. Yeah, it's a hot mess. But so they get there and they set it up, everything up, and the Melp arrives on Earth through the second gate. It worked. Everything seems like it's gonna work out great, but just kidding. Wherever the Melp is, they see the image of a gun, and then boom, bang, dead. No Melp.
Yep.
Um,
That's ominous.
yeah. Sam was not able to get a location, but she got enough of a signal from the GPS for long enough that she was able to try like narrow down the location to southern Utah.
I said like Mormon country. No one ever cleared that up for me.
Um, More like desert country.
In my mind, all of Utah is Mormon country.
It's
So,
fair, but southern Utah is much more like vastly uninhabited desert.
mm-hmm.
Which is why Jack's like, oh yeah, that narrows it down so much.
Right, right.
Um, so Hammond calls in another favor and he goes to talk to this guy who I forgot to write his name down.
Whitlow.
Yeah, Whitlow, yeah. And he uh gives him some cryptic information and they chat about some things and he says, I know nothing, but I do know that a C-5 is a really big plane and it could fit a Stargate in it.
Mm-hmm.
So they find out that the gate is currently somewhere around St. George, Utah. Um,
And this guy, Whitlow, feels like such a snake. Like he's that character that like everyone keeps around because you need his information, but he
but
always gets it in really like sketchy ways and no one really
oh,
trusts
for
him or like
sure.
likes him.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He like, yeah, because well, I don't know what he did that Hammond helped him out in the first place because this was a
Right.
favor that
Right.
he owed Hammond.
Well, that's the thing. He's like the one that's like, I'll trade you for a future favor, you know, like
Yeah, but
okay.
then he's like, so does that mean we're even? And he cared more about getting even than Hammond did, which was weird.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want Hammond to be any part of his life anymore, which is sketchy.
Because he's one of those people that doesn't like to owe others. He wants everyone to owe him. I'm telling you, he is that
Yeah.
quintessential character.
Um, so they go, Hammond we have this weird scene where Hammond is like, don't shoot anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, I get
Friendly
Hammond's like,
fire.
no, but Hammond's like, if you shoot an American who's also just following orders, like that's gonna look bad on you. I'm not having my men do that. Like, I get it, but the scene was unnecessary
It was. It was.
because we all know Jack's gonna shoot somebody.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Um, so SG-1 goes to the NID landing strip that they have the information to get that does not actually exist. And they find the gate and they ambush the guards.
This, I have a lot of really random notes, and I'm sorry.
No, I
But
love it.
this scene, when they're all like sneaking around, I feel like someone in the costume department was like, what are we going to do to make Jack look like a really cool guy? You
Oh,
know,
the backwards
we're
baseball
going to
cap.
put a backwards baseball cap and then like flip the bill up. And that's going to nail it. Perfect. Like, I was like, ooh, like I feel like they spent a lot of time deciding that because it was just a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. But also there were scenes where like randomly Jack and Sam were in full military uniform with hat, and I was like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
It was a weird episode. That's why I'm like, Brad Turner, what happened here?
Well, Brad probably didn't do the costume design
I'm
and like,
sure, but he
but
could have been like, this is dumb.
This is insane. Why are we doing this? It was probably like this is last minute, like whatever. Leave his hat like that. I don't even care.
Yeah. So they ambush the guards and find the gate. And okay, the one guard, they spend an unnecessarily long time looking at his face,
Yeah.
which makes me think that he has to come back and end up being sort of important because he was handsome and there was way too much camera time on him for him to just be a guard. Like the camera on him almost made it feel like I'm supposed to already know who he is, and I'm definitely not.
Right, right.
So that was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they ambush the guards. They find the gate. The guards dial the gate and jump into it. But of course, Jack is shooting everyone, so SG-1 at least gets the touchstone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Daniel does not get the gate address before the DHD clears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they bring the touchstone back to Madrona. Roham recalibrates it and saves Madrona, and everything is beautiful and happy. And you think that's going to be the end of the episode, but it's not. We go back to SGC and we find out that the investigation of the NID was taken out of Colonel Hammond or General Hammond's hands, and someone else is running it. But he was able to have a permanent iris welded over the second Stargate so that no one could use it again.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that SGC now has to be on the lookout for anytime they go to a planet. They have to just like also make sure that there's not four random NID guys chilling on the planet.
Because they're just lost to the world now.
Yeah.
They're just out there somewhere.
And then Jack talks to Maybourne, and Maybourne's is a fucking prick and is basically like, yeah, there's a iris on the gate now, but orders change, people get new assignments, everything happens, people are always, there's always a man behind the curtain.
I was like, Maybourne's going to ruin everything.
And then the episode ends.
Maybourne.
The worst. So I only had two pieces of trivia, and one was the thing I already told you about Daniel Jackson, and the other one is not as important, but I find it funny. So the reason it's funny where this Stargate ended up is because it ended up at a airstrip that doesn't exist that is near St. George, Utah, but the airport in St. George, Utah's IATA code is SGU.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so
That's fun. So it
cute
does.
little cute little Easter egg there.
We don't talk about
Um,
it there.
we don't talk about Utah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, who, Courtney, do you want to punch?
Maybourne.
Obviously,
Obviously.
piece of shit. I think I would also. I mean, Maybourne is the obvious answer. He's a horrible, horrible garbage human. But I
Mhm.
think since you picked Maybourne, I'm gonna also just throw a quick one too at Roham for just being completely annoying every time we had to talk to him.
Fair.
And
I
I
would
get it.
like it.
I get it, like your people are dying, but
Right.
like
Use
you're
some
being
logic.
you're being a whiny little bitch.
Mhm.
If my leader was acting that way, I would not care to follow them once everything was fixed.
Fair. Fair.
Um, who is your MVP?
Well, since I've already spoken about him a couple times today, Hammond is my MVP.
All right.
Just did everything right.
Even though you started the episode so sure that he was lying to us.
Yeah, yeah. He just quickly turned me around. He was like, "No, I'm the good guy. You stop it." So I was like, "You know
Yeah.
what? You are the good guy.
Yeah.
Kudos."
I'm gonna vote for MVP and also just give a shout out to Sam for being the only one to actually do anything useful
Mhm.
in the whole episode.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
to be fair, without Sam, nothing happened in this entire episode.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Jack would have just been shooting people.
literally, Jack, your only order, don't shoot people. First thing you do, shoot
Shoot
people.
people. Yeah. So now that we're towards the end of the episode, I would like to bring up mm, let's call it a thought, I guess.
Oh,
Maybe a prediction, maybe
okay.
a general. I've been watching a lot of sci-fi. I know I'm just taking things from all the places and putting them in one show.
Okay.
Um, so I was watching X-Files, and there's an episode called Ice, and they
Okay.
go out. Have you watched the X-Files? Are you
I,
familiar? Okay.
I
So
am
there's
familiar with the premise and the
right.
characters. I've never watched the show.
Well, they go out to this place called Ice, and they have two scientists and a geologist, and then Scully and Mulder. And everyone's like dying, and they're trying to figure out what happened there. And it turns out they were dying. It's like episode 7, so spoiler alert, but like you've probably seen it if
Yeah.
you're watching it. Um, what happens is they've all got these worms inside of them that are like parasites that are killing them.
Okay.
So I was like, gold, except they look like earthworms, so less gross. But
Yeah.
the way that they found to fix this problem, like
Hmm.
if you ingested it so you didn't just immediately die, you put another worm in there and they kill each other. And then it's gone from their body. So I was like, is this how we get rid of the gold in Shara? Can I put another gold in there? What happens if you put two gold in one person? Do they just immediately get ripped apart, or do they kill each other, or is there some kind of symbiosis? I don't know.
I would have to say I don't think they would kill each other because I think that they, despite being gross and parasitic weird worms, they do seem to have a level of intelligence that I don't think the worms in the X-Files had.
So while that's true, also you're thinking about the gold or using the resources from the body. So if there's
Yeah.
two gold trying to use the resources, like, are they fighting over it now? Because like, is there enough for two gold in a body? I don't know. I just went to a lot of theoretical
That is
places when I saw this episode.
no, that's a great. A lot of times when I'm watching other sci-fi, I go, "Hey, this came from that," or like because I mean, here's the thing about sci-fi, like, yes, you can always come up with new cool ideas and it's great, but like because one of the things that makes things sci-fi and not fantasy is that there is some kind of basis in something actual scientific and a lot of like so there's kind of like a limited scope of what your baseline can be. And obviously, like you can go places with it and do creative storytelling, but like robots and aliens are robots and aliens, and there's always going to be a little bit of overlap that might not be obvious or like deliberately idea stealing, but like, I mean, the Goa'uld looks so much like the alien in Aliens,
Right.
but like they're not the same at all. But like you can't I don't know, there's gonna always be if you had a weird worm parasite, there's gonna be an overlap of weird worm parasites anytime you have it.
And I'm gonna hate them all. Yes.
Yeah. Um, but I also think it's like one of those things where it depends on what is the first one you saw and how to then you base everything
Well, the first one
on
I saw was Stargate, but
but you know
I'll come
X-Files.
out first.
Right. But I mean like I'm gonna compare everything sci-fi to Doctor Who. Like that's just how
Okay.
I'm always going to do it. And I know that I mean, well, Doctor Who is the oldest of a lot of things, but like some people are gonna automatically say, well, this is like that thing in Star Trek where, or this is like that thing in Star Wars where, and like whatever your baseline is, you compare things to
Right.
it that way. But I don't know, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Depends on what kind of world we live in.
I mean, the chicken came first. If you
Did
have
it though?
any, I mean, yeah, biblically, yes.
Well, on Abydos.
Well, yeah, but Abydos doesn't have the Bible.
but they might still have chickens and eggs. Look, everything is nothing. I don't know.
Everything is nothing.
Yes.
Um, well, you know what isn't nothing? Our fan engagement. Or at least it could be something if you guys would
It's
talk to
not
us.
nothing.
I mean,
I,
right now it's nothing because nobody talks to us.
no, I got talked to today.
Okay, but it doesn't count when Zach DMs you.
How about the friend like that I don't even know who he is liked our story?
That's true. I just got the notification that Zach responded to the story, and I was like, yeah, but that doesn't count.
He's a fan.
He is. He is a fan.
Mm,
We love you, Zach.
we do. I don't think he actually listens. He doesn't really listen to podcasts, but he does interact with us quite frequently on Instagram. So
He does. He probably interacts with us the most on Instagram for someone who has no idea what we're talking about ever.
absolutely, 1000%.
Yes. And actually, you know what? Dan liked our Facebook story the other day. And I
Oh,
was like, only person I know who watches Facebook stories.
look at you, Dan. We love you.
um, we do. But you can be like Zach and Dan and talk to us. You can email us anywhere at Jeff and Aliens. No, you can't email
Not
us
anywhere,
anywhere.
just a
You can
Gmail.
just at Gmail. It's late, guys. You can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com and you can interact with us on any of the social medias at Death and Aliens. You can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can follow me at CECloud13.
And we will see you guys on Thursday for Thriller Thursday.
See ya.
Bye.